بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فما بعد, my dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu gave us this beautiful religion of Islam, which is based on His revelation on His book Al-Quran Al-Kareem. And in this Quran Al-Kareem, one of the major parts of the Quran are the stories of the Anbiya alayhimus salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent many Anbiya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said there hasn't been any group of people, any qarya, any town, any village where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send a warner. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this very clearly. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that out of the number of Anbiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala named some of them. And He named, say, about 25 of them or so in the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us their stories to varying degrees. I mean, not the same detail and not the same length of each story. For example, the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is in the whole surah of Surah Yusuf. The story of Musa alayhi salam is in practically every juz of the Quran. Right? It's out of 30 juz, Musa alayhi salam's story is in about 27 or 28 of the juz of the Quran. Some mention of Musa alayhi salam, to the extent that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said once that the Quran almost became the book of Musa alayhi salam. The story of Isa alayhi salam is in Surah Maryam and elsewhere, and so on and so forth. So the story of Nuh alayhi salam is in Surah Nuh. So different stories of the Anbiya alayhi salam. The story of Ibrahim alayhi salam is there in different surah, including Surah Ibrahim, plus other places. Now, point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described all of these Anbiya alayhi salam, and He described them, as I mentioned to you, some more and some less. And the hikmat of this, the wisdom of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. For us, the important thing to understand is that the stories of the Anbiya alayhimus salam have been mentioned for a particular reason. And the reason is obviously not entertainment. The reason is not even historical recording of historical facts. The reason is to give us, the people who read the Quran, in whichever age they do, to give them a template on which they can mold their own lives. So, for example, if I want to see what I must do when I am in some form of hardship, where I am, for example, I am doing the right thing, but I am not getting any traction for it, I'm not getting any support for it, and let alone getting support or let alone getting any affirmation, I'm actually getting criticism for it, I'm being opposed, I'm being within quotes punished for doing, even though I'm doing the right thing. What must I do? Look at the stories of the Anbiya alayhi salam. Practically every story of every Nabi, except for Sulaiman alayhi salam and Dawud alayhi salam, practically every story of every Nabi is a story of somebody who stood for the truth, who stood for integrity and morality and ethics and values. And for that reason, he was opposed, he was persecuted. In some cases, he was attacked. In some cases, some of the Anbiya were even killed. What was their crime? Their crime was to speak the truth. Their crime was that they spoke the truth. Their crime was uh, that they did not follow the general trend of people uh, who uh, who succumb to political power, or who succumb to authority, or succumb to bribery and corruption. They stand for the truth, and they're willing to pay the price for that, irrespective of the price. And whatever the price is, they're willing to pay that price. And you see this story, of course, to a level of excellence in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Similarly, if I want to see what must I do, if I have plenty, I have power, I have authority, I have hukuma, then what must I do? Look at the stories of the Anbiya alayhi salam. You will see how they behaved and what they did. Some of them had power and authority. Some of them had wealth, enormous wealth, enormous power and authority. Did they abuse it? Did they use it for self-indulgence? Did they use it for their pleasure? Or did they use it for the good of all the people and all the living beings who were in their care, and in order to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What did they do? So also for anything else. All the marahil, all the manazil of our lives, all the steps, all the problems, all the issues of our lives, if we want to know what is the best way to deal with them, the place to look for those answers is in the Kitab of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, in the stories of the Anbiya alayhi salam. And that is the purpose that's my purpose in starting this series of classes. Alhamdulillah, we have done them now for 33 or 34 weeks, and inshallah we will continue until we finish the whole list of Anbiya alayhi salam that we have information about. We are currently on the story of Hud alayhi salam, and one of the important things that I want to say to you is that in the case of Hud alayhi salam, as well as in the case of a lot of the Anbiya alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used a particular way of expression. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كذبت عاد المرسلين كذبت عاد المرسلين إذ قال لهم أخوهم هود ألا تتقون. Now see the way of address. Allah said the Ad belied and denied the messengers when their brother Hud said to them, will you not fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obey him? Now the point I want to make to you here is that today we talk about da'wah. Today we talk about presenting Islam to people, and some of us in our enthusiasm, and some people get very extreme in their self-righteousness, which is a very dangerous place to be in. And they even, the way that they behave is, to put it politely and mildly, is not very endearing. It's not very, even politeness, they don't pay attention to politeness. Their manners are something, much to be desired. You will find there's no smile on their face, even though they will quote for you the hadith that a smile is sadaqah, but for them that sadaqah is too expensive. They don't want to give it. You will find that they are very harsh in their approach to people, and to the extent that sometimes they will not even return greeting, they will not even return salam, and so on and so forth. My brothers and sisters, please think about this. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling the Nabi the brother of the people to whom he sent the Nabi. Now, who did Allah send the Nabi to? Did Allah send the Nabi to a bunch of awliya Allah? Did Allah send the Nabi to people who were the most pious and the best people so that a Nabi of Allah can be called their brother? Or did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by definition send Anbiya to people who were literally the pits, who were the worst of people? They had gone bad to such an extent that it actually required Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send a messenger, a warner to them to warn them to come back on track. Which one? So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Hud alayhi salam, Salih alayhi salam, whoever, to people who are problematic. People who are sinners, people who are oppressors, people who have different kinds of problems and who are stuck in different kinds of vices. And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling that Nabi their brother. What do we understand from this? We understand from this, number one, that all human beings, by virtue of humanity, are brothers to one another. It doesn't matter what they worship, who they worship, don't worship. It doesn't matter their race, it doesn't matter their color, it doesn't matter their tribe or nationality and so on and so forth. Nothing matters. All human beings are brothers and sisters of all other human beings. So this is the first thing that we understand, because this is what the language of the Quran is. Second thing we understand is that the importance of treating people well, the importance of having brotherly relations with people who do not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Now, by brotherly relations, what do we mean? By brotherly relations, we mean that we are helpful, we are polite, we are kind, we are compassionate. We go out of our way to do something good for them. Because the important thing to understand is that entering Islam is not a physical exercise. Right? You don't have to enter a masjid to enter Islam. Entering Islam is an exercise of the heart. Who is a Muslim? The one who practices Islam. Who will practice Islam? Somebody who accepts Islam, somebody who loves Islam, somebody who thinks that Islam is a great deal, it's a big deal, it's something that he or she should really want, and they should practice it. They believe this and therefore they practice it. Now, how does belief change? Right? Think about this. The whole concept of forcible conversion is illogical. I always tell people this thing. I said there's no need to go anywhere. Just think, right? Just think. Just use your intelligence and tell yourself and ask yourself, is it possible to force somebody to think in a particular way? Is it possible? And if you think it's possible, then I suggest to do this. Do this as an exercise. Get a Republican to vote Democrat. Or get a Democrat to vote Republican. Or don't even go there. Take a Arsenal supporter, Arsenal fan, and get him to cheer for, say, Manchester United. Right? Do that. Take somebody who is into basketball or football or cricket or something, and they have their favorite team and they associate themselves with that team. The team doesn't even know they exist, but they do that. And tell them, change your affiliation. So instead of being for a fan of this team, change that to the fan of the opposite team. Believe me, that is an exercise which more than likely you will fail. In which you will fail. Now, the thing is that if somebody will not even change their favorite football team, they will not even change their political party affiliation, how will they change the God who they worship? By force. How will that happen? It cannot happen. It does not happen. And anyone who believes that this can be done is fooling themselves. People change their political affiliation when they see a need for that. when they see that the other one is, I'm not talking about corrupt politicians who just change from one party to another for money. I'm talking about genuine, decent human beings who support a particular political party because of what that party promises, their party principles and policies. If they are going to change from one party to another party, there is a reason why they're doing that, because they're convinced that the second party fulfills more accurately and clearly their own aspirations and goals. So also somebody who leaves a job and joins another company is doing that because, not doing that because somebody put a gun to his head. He's doing that because he feels that his chances of advancing in his career and doing something worthwhile and beneficial is more in the new company. Somebody who changes their affiliation in sports, they're doing it because somewhere in their heart they feel this is the right thing to do. So how does somebody change their affiliation to God? Right? So if somebody is leaving whichever religion they follow and if they enter Islam, or vice versa, may Allah protect us, it's because the new system makes more sense to them. Now, how will you convince somebody to enter Islam if they do not even see you as a friend? In sales we say you can only sell to friends. And this is nowhere more true than in the inviting to Islam, than in preaching. You can only preach to friends. You can only invite friends to enter your house, which is your religion. So the first thing to understand as far as the stories of the Anbiya is concerned is, the Anbiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them to be the friends of the people to whom they were sent. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called them their brothers. And you'll find this terminology in the Quran in many places concerning many Anbiya. So please understand that. And second thing is, now what did the Nabi say? What does the Nabi say? Same thing we see in the Hud al-Islam and everywhere. What does the Nabi say? The Nabi says, I have come to you, I have been sent to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't ask you for anything. I have come to give you. And what have you come to give me? I have come to give you and show you a way in which you can become a winner in this world and the next. The same thing applies today to us as the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of whose barakah and because of whose position as the Khatam al-Nabiyyin, as the Sayyid al-Mursaleen, as the last and final of the messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the chief of them and the Imam of them and the Sayyid of them. This duty of introducing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to His creatures, this duty of presenting Islam to the world has devolved upon us. It is today our duty to do this work. And we say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we are greatly honored to be given this job. And inshallah, we will try to do it to the best of our ability. Now, how do you do that? Number one, by developing the best manners. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us this. Udu ila rabbik bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, invite them towards your Rabb with wisdom and with the best and the most beautiful, the most attractive of speech, of invitation, mawizatul hasana. And if you have to argue with them, then do that in the best possible way. Wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. In the best possible way. Don't argue with them in a way which offends them. Don't insult them. Don't, browbeat them. Be patient with them. Let them ask you questions. Answer those questions with a smile on your face. Give them time. All of this. So Hud alayhi salam did this. And again the same formula we see in the lives of most of the Anbiya alayhi salam, that some people whose hearts were clean, what we call Salimul Fitrat, these people came to Islam, they accepted the message of the Nabi, but others were different and they stayed away. And not only did they stay away, they went out of their way to be nasty to the Nabi. They opposed him, they tried to trouble him, they tried to harm him. As I mentioned, in some cases they tried to and they succeeded in killing him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, is watching all of this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent His Anbiya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He sends His Anbiya, there are two things which happen. One is that while the Nabi is there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not send His azab. He doesn't punish the people. Because He has sent the messenger, Allah gives them enough time to accept the invitation of the messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them enough room to deal with whatever intellectual, psychological, emotional, turmoil or struggle they have until they come to the truth. So time is given. But once that time is over and people still do not change and they still continue to oppose the Nabi, and now maybe they are now at a stage where the Nabi is in danger, right? They want to kill the Nabi or something. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's usual sunnah is to save His Anbiya. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes the Nabi from them and the punishment of Allah comes on those people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested the people of Ad one last time with a drought. They had a severe drought, and if they had repented, if they had understood what was happening and turned towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then perhaps they would have been saved. But we see this thing all the time. We see this thing, and even today we see this thing, where when tests come, tests are not seen as tests. This is one of the great tragedies especially of people who are intelligent, people who are who feel, they feel they are very scientific and they feel they understand the reason why something happens. Take the case of, I will come back to the story, but take the case of Musa alayhi salam and the people of Firaun. There were 9 different tests that came to the people of Firaun. One after the other. But did they take heed from that? Did they see the test as a test? They did not. Eventually, they perished. So also in this case, these people, they are a drought, so they decided to go to Makkah and they made dua in the Kaaba. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them. They saw clouds, dense clouds, very dark clouds, and they rejoiced. They said, these look like, they're not like cumulus clouds, they are like nimbus clouds, and so therefore this means heavy rain and we need the rain. And they were very happy, but that was not the case. What those clouds were, those clouds of the azab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلَمَّا رَأَوْهُ عَارِضًا مُسْتَقْبِلَ أَوْدِيَتِهِمْ قَالُوا هَذَا عَارِضٌ مُمْطِرُونَ بَلْ هُوَ مَا اسْتَعْجَلْتُمْ بِهِ رِيحٌ فِيهَا عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. So when they saw these clouds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلَمَّا رَأَوْهُ عَارِضًا مُسْتَقْبِلَ أَوْدِيَتِهِمْ قَالُوا هَذَا عَارِضٌ مُمْطِرُونَ بَلْ هُوَ مَا اسْتَعْجَلْتُمْ بِهِ رِيحٌ فِيهَا عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ تُدَمِّرُ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ بِأَمْرِ رَبِّهَا فَأَصْبَحُوا لَا يُرَى إِلَّا مَسَاكِنُهُمْ كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْقَوْمَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that when they saw that it was a dense cloud coming towards their valleys, they said, this is a cloud bringing us rain. Nay, but it is that torment which you were asking to be hastened. Because these people, I mean, this was again the whole problem with a lot of people. When the Nabi warned them, they said, "Oh, if your God is so powerful, tell him to punish us. We'll see." Yeah, these kind of arrogant statements, many times we hear this statement today also with people. You warn the person, you tell them, look, what you are doing is wrong, you will be questioned by Allah. He will say, no, no, I will answer Allah. I will answer, don't worry, I know how to answer Allah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. No Nabi said that, no Prophet said that. No person who has knowledge will say something like this, to say, I will answer Allah. Except for the worst of the jahilun, worst of the ignorant people. But people are like this. Somebody says, oh, I will answer. Don't worry, I will answer Allah. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this is what you wanted, so it has been sent, a wind wherein is a painful torment, destroying everything by the command of its Rabb. So they became such that nothing could be seen except their dwellings. Thus do we recompense the people who are the mujrimun. Now, whenever Rasulullah saw dense clouds, he would make dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect him and everybody from that. Potentially, in case it was a adab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then said, and as for the Ad, they were destroyed by a furious, violent wind, which Allah imposed on them for 7 nights and 8 days in succession, so that you could see men lying overthrown and destroyed as if they were hollow trunks of date palms. Do you see any remnants of them? Think about this. Go to YouTube and Google tornadoes, right? And see what happens in a tornado. A tornado just passes over land, and it's like a vacuum cleaner. Everything, whatever it passes through, it just sucks it up, goes high up in the air, and it's spinning in this thing, and it drops from there, and it's dead and completely destroyed. No matter how strong it might be, I mean, you see huge 16-wheeler trucks getting sucked up and all kinds of stuff. Now imagine if that tornado. This is what we are saying. What happens to whatever the tornado just touches when it is moving? Now, what about if that tornado sits in that place for 7 days and 8 nights? What do you think will happen? That's what happened to the people who had this tornado came and sat on them for that huge period of time, this enormous wind. And the wind has been sent to destroy them. There is no way that anybody could have escaped that. Right? So think about this and say that this is what happens. And of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and when our commandment came, we saved Hud and those who believed with him by a mercy from us, and we saved them from a severe torment. Such were Ad. They rejected the ayat of Allah, of their Rabb, and they disobeyed his messengers and followed the command of every proud, obstinate oppressor or leader, and they were pursued by a curse in the world, and so they will be on the day of resurrection. No doubt, verily, the Ad disbelieved in their Rabb. So away with the people of Hud. So away with Ad, the people of Hud. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning this about these people, about the people of Ad. بَعْدًا لِآدٍ قَوْمِ هُود. Allah said, away from them. They will be in the Jahannam, in the hellfire. May Allah protect us from the hellfire. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his protection from all these things. Now, my brothers and sisters, as I told you, the whole purpose of this is for us to understand and take lessons. Now, what is the lesson? The lesson here is that 2 or 3 things that you see among these people. Here is a bunch of people who were strong, they were wealthy, they had, whatever they had of the world of the time, they had all the resources that they could have. They could have been people who, or should have been people who would be very thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gave them all that He gave them, and they should then have used that in order to be, to be good to the world and to help others. But instead of that, they denied the messenger. they denied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They refused to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In their actions, they were jabbarin. Uh, they were extremely cruel and extremely oppressive. They were extremely arrogant, and they were extremely stubborn. So even when the messenger came to them, when Hud alayhi salam came to them, and he tried to convince them, and he tried to help them to understand what they were doing wrong, they refused to believe him. They refused to believe him. They refused to accept what he had to say. They argued with him and so on and so forth. And then when he warned them of the punishment of Allah, they said, "Bring the punishment. Let it, bring it. I mean, why wait till the day of judgment? Bring it right now." Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. And so what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Okay, you want the punishment? Here's the punishment. Then what do you do?" Right? Now, what does this teach us? This teaches us that worldly wealth and power are nothing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who gave them to us in the first place. Now, if you think about this, this is not rocket science, right? This is not something that we have never heard of, that we didn't know that wealth and power mean nothing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any Muslim, we know this is part of our creed, to know that Allahu Akbar, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ala kulli shayin qadir. Allah is the greatest. Allah has control over everything. As I remind myself all the time and remind you, it's not whether you know this or not. We all know this. The issue is this knowledge, that I know that Allah is the greatest, that I know that whatever I have cannot supersede what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, and it does not give me the right to disobey Allah. On the other hand, on the contrary, if I have more from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I must obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more, because of my gratitude to Him Jalla Jalaluhu. Now, instead of that, I know all of this. The question is, if I know all of this, then what is the reflection of this knowledge in my life? So if you are looking at my life and you say that, okay, you accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as your Rabb, as the one to worship, as your Ilah, and as your Rabb, and you accept Him as the one who is your creator, sustainer, maintainer, and you believe and you accept that you must obey Him and you must follow the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, what is the evidence of that in your life? If somebody asks me that question, do I have an answer? Again, when I'm saying somebody asks me the question, it's not a matter of answering the question to answering some human being. It's a question of answering yourself. I don't have to answer to somebody else. You don't have to answer to me or anybody else. It's a question of me asking myself this question, that what is the reflection in my life that I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu as the only one worthy of worship, as the only one who can do anything good or bad to me, as the only one who has control of everything in this life, as the one to whom is my return. What is the evidence that I love Allah, that I love Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What is the evidence that I truly believe that following the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the secret of success in this life and the next? What is the evidence of this? I can make all of these claims, but if there is no evidence of that in my life, then you can say that you don't really believe this. If I tell you, for example, the harmfulness of overdosing on carbs, eating too many carbohydrates, eating too much of sugar. Now I tell you, this is very harmful to you. We must not eat too much of sugar, and and we must not eat too much of carbohydrate and so on and so forth. We must monitor our diet. We must restrict our diet. We must eat sensibly, eat pure stuff, and so on and so forth. I'm saying all of this to you. I'm giving you this big lecture on this. And then when I sit down to eat and you see my plate and you say, La hawla quwwata illa billah. This man just told us, don't overdose on carbs, and look at his plate. His plate has only carbs on it. He told us, don't eat sugar, but look at those bowls of dessert that he's got around him. Then what do you mean? So what will you say? You will say, well, your theory is good, but you yourself do not believe in this theory. Now, why are you trying to preach it to me? If you think this is so good, how come you don't practice it yourself? Right? Now, isn't that a reasonable thing to say? Isn't that a reasonable thing to say? If you really feel that this is something which is worthwhile, how come you don't do it? My brothers and sisters, believe me, this is what the world is telling us today as Muslims. The world is saying we are sick and tired of people talking about Islam. Islam means this, Islam means that, Islam means the other. Islam means truthfulness, Islam means standing for justice, Islam means peace, Islam means harmony, Islam. People are saying, stop talking, show it. So put up or shut up. If Islam means peace and harmony, we want to see that peace and harmony in your life. If Islam means a pursuit of knowledge, then we want to see how many Muslim scientists there are. Not scientists who have become atheists, nor Muslims who have no idea about science. We got these two extremes. How many Muslims are there who know science and who recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even better because of their science that they know? If you say that Muslims are people who are beneficial, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. Allah said, you are the best of people and you have been selected for the benefit of people. So if this is true, then you are living in this community. What is the benefit that you are spreading around you? Who is benefiting from you? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Who is benefiting from us? This is what we learn from the stories of the Anbiya alayhi salam. Do not be arrogant. Do not be stubborn. Change your lives. Make them more beneficial and positive. Because that is the proof of the pudding. That is the proof of our belief. That is the proof that we actually believe what we profess. And this is what the world is saying. The world is saying, don't talk about Islam, show us Islam. And if you show us Islam, then we will come to Islam. We talk about, for example, the beauty of the Islamic financial system, and we say that, zero-based zero interest-based financing, because we don't believe in interest-based financing. So we are saying financing through equity and other ways. This is the secret of a stable financial system in the world, which will save the world from the ups and downs that, the roller coaster of the regular interest-based financing system. When people take responsibility for each other, then goodness will spread. You will not have homeless people. You will not have, on the one hand, homeless people. On the other hand, lots of empty houses which have been foreclosed and repossessed by banks. So you've got an empty house and you've got somebody sleeping on the street. Why is that happening? Why is that happening in any intelligent nation where you have empty houses but you have people sleeping on the street? Why is that? So we are saying, if you had a Islamic system, you would not have this. Every person would have had a roof over their heads. Every person would have had access to medical health, to health care. Everyone would have had an access to education. Everyone would have had would not need to sleep hungry, they would have food. People are saying, wonderful, very nice, show it. And it's not enough for you to say that this used to happen 1400 years ago. Yes, sure, fair enough, no problem with that. But we want to see it today. This is our learning from the lives of the Anbiya alayhi salam. So from the story of Hud alayhi salam, we learn the danger of arrogance, the danger of stubbornness. We understand that becoming arrogant because we have wealth and power leads to disaster. Instead, we need to develop humility, make istighfar and tawbah, turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, try to be beneficial to everybody who is around us in this world. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with you and never to be displeased. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.